It had been raining non-stop throughout the night at Family Farm. There were puddles of water everywhere. There were puddles in the lane, in front of the house, and there was an enormous puddle in the farmyard. "Good morning, everyone!" shouted Tech. "Oh, what a big puddle!" he exclaimed, reversing quickly. He had never seen such a big puddle as this in the farmyard before. Did Colin, the farmhand, know about it, he wondered? "Colin! Colin!" called Tech as he drove around and hooted his horn. "Beep, beep!" "Oh, good morning, Tech. What's the matter?" "There's a great big pool of water in the farmyard," said Tech. "Pool of water?" asked Colin. "I'd better change my boots then." And off he went to look for his Wellingtons. Oh dear, his boots were filled with water as well. The roof was leaking. "My goodness, this is a big puddle," sighed Colin. And in the house, Molly was sighing too. The water simply would not drain from the sink, even though she had pulled out the plug. "That's odd," she said. "It drained perfectly yesterday. What was the matter?" she wondered. She went out and examined the gutter to see if it was blocked with dirt and leaves, which would stop the water from draining away. But the gutter was perfectly clean. Perhaps the pipe itself was blocked, thought Molly. "What's happened, Colin?" asked Tech. "Have you forgotten to pull the plug?" "Tech, there's no plug in the farmyard," laughed Colin. "The gutter has closed up." "Galloping gaskets! The gutter's closed up!" "Go and fetch Tommy the trailer," said Colin. And before Colin could say another word, Tech was on his way to the machine shed. "Come on, Tommy! There's a great big puddle of water in the farmyard," said Tech. "A puddle of water in the farmyard? What are we going to do about that then?" asked Tommy. "You'll find out in a minute," replied Tech, hooking up his friend and pulling him out of the shed. Here we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rods to clean the drain. That should be enough," said Colin, who was helping on the farm. After they had reached the puddle, Colin joined all the rods together until they made one long rod. Colin pushed the rods down the drain and began to turn them. "What is he doing?" asked Tommy the trailer. "Cleaning the drain," said Tech. "That's it," said Colin. "The water should drain off easily now." But the water didn't go anywhere, and the great big puddle was still there. Colin looked at Tec, and Tec looked at Colin, and they both looked at the water. "Oh dear, I'd better try once more then," said Colin. But although he pushed and turned and tugged and turned, the water did not flow away. "Oh dear," said Tec. "Duck eggs and doughnuts," said Colin. "The mouth of the drain must be blocked." "Here it is," said Molly. She had managed to find the plunger. "This should work." And she placed the plunger over the plug hole and worked it up and down a few times until the dirt was moved and sucked down the sink. "Thank goodness for that," said Molly happily. "Now I can finish washing the breakfast dishes." "Here's the problem," said Colin. "You see, the mouth of the drain is blocked, and the water from the farmyard can't flow away." Colin started to clear the drain. It was covered up by an old tire, leaves, and clumps of earth and grass. But after Colin had cleaned the drain opening, the water flowed easily into the ditch. "Well done, Colin," said Tec. "What we really need to do is open the ditch all the way," said Colin. When the three of them returned to the farmyard, the puddle had disappeared. The water had drained away into the ditch in the field. "That's got rid of the water," said Colin. "Would you take the rods back to the tool shed for me, please? I've got to make a phone call." Before long, who should come up the lane to Family Farm but a great, strong JCB. A beautiful orange one. "Oh, it's huge," said Tec excitedly. "And just look at those big, strong arms." After the driver had turned off the engine and said hello to Colin, Tec and Tommy went over to the JCB for a chat. "Hello, I'm Tec."
"And I'm Tommy the trailer."
"Hello, I'm JCB, but you can call me JC," said the machine importantly.
"Oh, thank you very much, JC. Yes, thank you very much, JC,"
said Tommy and Tec together. "Right, how may I help you?" asked the JCB. "I am an extremely busy machine, you know." "Colin wants you to open a ditch in the field," said Tec. "Oh, well, even though I say so myself, you won't find anyone better at opening up a ditch," boasted JC. "Could we help you?" asked Tec. "That won't be necessary, thank you. I never accept help from anyone. I can do everything myself," said the JCB proudly. "Oh," said Tec, who was disappointed. "Yes, I'm very fortunate to be a big, strong machine. Little, weak machines are the kind that need help," said the JCB. But we're not weak, protested Tech.
No, we're not, said Tommy. We can do lots of things.
Sure you can, smiled the JCB. But I can do all kinds of things with my arms and buckets. Come to the field and I'll show you, he boasted. And at that, the driver climbed into the JCB's cab. This way, said Colin. And Tech and Tommy the trailer follow them to the field. JC set to work immediately.
Look, he's got feet of steel,
said Tommy excitedly. How useful it would be to have feet as well as wheels, thought Tech. But the JCB had only just begun showing off what he could do. Watch this, he shouted. He lifted a whole bucket of earth and grass from the ditch and dumped it out on the field behind. Hey, look at this then, he shouted. But at that very second, he stopped. He couldn't move his arm. Hey, what's going on here? What's wrong with me? He asked. I can't move. What's the matter? Asked Colin. I don't know, said the driver. What do you mean you don't know? I can't move my wheels, nor feet, nor arms, complained JC. Colin and the driver looked at the JCB in bewilderment. Oh dear, I don't know what's happened, said the driver. It's run out of diesel. Oh, Colin was annoyed. Don't worry, said Tech. Tommy and I will go and fetch a can of diesel for you now. No, I don't want you to fetch diesel for me. I can do that myself, said JC crossly. Oh, no, you can't, said Tech. You can't move at all without diesel, can you? But I don't want your help, little tractor. I don't need anyone, fumed the JCB. Everyone needs someone to help them sometimes, said Tech, and off we went across the field. And after he'd had diesel in his tank, the JCB started immediately, and he could lift the bucket in the air with his arms once again. Hey, look at this. I can move again, said JC happily. Thank you, Tech and Tommy. You're welcome, said Tech. Everyone needs help sometimes, you see. You're right, Tech. Perfectly right. And JC went on working until he'd finished opening up the ditch. It was a beautiful sunny day at Family Farm. The birds were singing and the animals were lazily grazing and chewing the cud when Tech whizzed along from nowhere. Morning all, beep beep! He hooted his horn and scattered the hens all over the place. What's wrong with Tech? Rawr, wondered Nell. You look very restless today, Tech, said Molly.
Has the postman called yet?
No, not yet. But even as Molly spoke, who should come up the lane but the postman in his red van? Good morning, Tech. Molly.
Good morning, Donald. Do you have a letter for me?
Asked Tech. Hold on a minute. Let me have a look. Yes, I do. A letter for Tech the Tractor. There you are.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Who were you expecting a letter from, Tech? Asked Molly as she opened it.
The old machine show,
said Tech excitedly. The old machine show? And after she opened the letter, Molly read, The Vintage Machinery Show wishes to invite Tech the Tractor to come to the show on Saturday, September the 2nd at 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yes, that's the one,
said Tech. But today is September the 2nd, said Molly. We'd better hurry up. You don't want to be late, especially since you've been invited, said Molly. And off she went to have a wash and change her clothes.
Beep beep, goodbye.
Tech hooted his horn as they drove off down the lane from Family Farm and off to the Vintage Machinery Show. What was a vintage machinery show like? Tech had never been to one before. And though he wasn't very sure why he had been invited, he was longing to see all the other tractors and meet all the machines.
Gaskets, we've arrived,
said Tech as he looked around him and saw a whole field full of tractors and old farm machinery of every kind. Goodness gracious, Tech, this is a huge show, said Molly. We must be sure to stay together. Tech, did you say? So you're Tech? Well, it's been years since I saw you last. But you haven't changed a bit, said some old red tractor. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Massey. I used to be one of your father's friends. A long time ago, we used to plough together a lot, you know.
Are you going to plough today?
Oh, no. I'm too old for that sort of thing now, but you'll see me in the show ring later this afternoon, said Massey proudly. Tech, come over here and see some more tractors, called Molly, and Tech followed her.
Galloping gaskets! This one must be an extremely old tractor,
whispered Tech in case he woke him up. But the tractor hadn't heard him. It just stood there and snored. Look at those narrow wheels. And the hard little seat. And he doesn't have a cab either, said Molly. This tractor looks different, said Molly.
Galloping gaskets! I've never seen one like this before, said Tech.
I'm a special tractor. I can go between the vegetable rows. That's why I've only got one front wheel, said the green and yellow tractor. My name is John Deere. What's yours?
Tech the Tractor.
Tech the Tractor? You're Tech the Tractor? John Deere was impressed.
Yes, said Tech.
Aren't you feeling nervous?
Nervous? No, I'm not. Why?
Asked Tech. Tech and Molly stared at each other in puzzlement. Surely Tech was not expected to take part in the show, was he? Molly searched for the letter of invitation. She hadn't a chance to read all of it yet, but where was it? Perhaps we'd better go to the caravan to ask, she said, and off they went. Molly had never seen such a sight before. There were tractors everywhere, wherever she turned. Tech was very happy.
Where are you going?
Asked Tech. To the main shoring, of course. Are you coming? Asked the old tractor. Tech and Molly looked at each other. They weren't quite sure what they were supposed to do, and Molly started to look through her bag for the letter of invitation again. But at that very moment, a man's voice came over the loudspeaker and said,
If Tech the Tractor has arrived, could he please come to the caravan immediately? Thank you.
Galloping gaskets! What have I done?
asked Tech. But there was no time to lose, and so Tech and Molly went over to the caravan. By this time, all the vintage tractors had driven around the main shoring, where they were watched by the admiring crowd. Oh, aren't they smart? Said Molly, who had forgotten all about going to the caravan.
Yes, they look very good,
agreed Tech, and he drove off to get a better look. But in doing so, he drove straight into the shoring. Hey, hold on there, said Molly. You're not supposed to go into the ring. But it was too late. Tech had gone. Oh dear. It was only after he had arrived at the ring that Tech realized he had lost Molly.
Molly! Oh dear, Molly! I'm in the shoring!
The tractors were in the ring for a long time, the judges all staring at them intently. Who would win the competition? And then the judges decided that the Titan had won first prize today. And after Tech had carried the cup over to the winner, and the owner had introduced him to Titan, the crowd applauded him enthusiastically. Well done indeed, Molly clapped her hands excitedly. Well, that was an honor for the little tractor, she thought. And then, as she reached for her handkerchief, Molly found the invitation. And we would be very glad if Tech would agree to present the cups to the winners, said the letter. The Shire horses were next in the ring.
Galloping gaskets! Those horses are huge, aren't they, Molly?
Tech was wide-eyed as he looked at the Shire horses. Molly explained that years ago, Shire horses used to do the work that tractors did now. They were the ones who would haul every cart and trolley and implement needed to till and work the land.
Oh, they must be very strong indeed,
said Tech. Bye, Tech. We'll see you next year, and don't forget to call by and see us if you're passing.
Oh, I will,
replied Tech.
I will indeed. Goodbye.
It was spring in Family Farm, and the big blue tractor and the plough were out ploughing first thing in the morning. But Tech hadn't woken up properly yet.
Tech! Tech!
Called someone, and the little tractor looked around sleepily. Murmured Tech.
Here!
Shouted the voice.
Sam, is that you?
Asked Tech.
Yes, and I'm fed up of waiting. I want to go to the field to scare crows,
he said in an irritated voice.
But the big blue tractor has to finish ploughing first,
said Tech.
I know, but maybe he's finished already. He's been out there since first thing this morning,
said Sam the Scarecrow.
I won't be long,
said Tech, and off we went to the field.
Good morning, Tech,
said the hens.
Good morning, hens. Beep, beep.
Tech sounded his horn. By the time he got to the field, he was out of breath, and so he stopped to look at the big blue tractor and the plough ploughing.
Pity I wasn't a big, strong tractor like the big blue tractor.
But if Tech was small, even the big blue tractor looked small in the big field. And to Tech's surprise, he had only ploughed a quarter of a field.
My goodness me! Sam the Scarecrow will be very disappointed,
said Tech to himself, and he was on his way back to the shed when his attention was caught by the gulls who were looking for worms for breakfast.
I'm lucky I'm a tractor and not a gull. I would never be able to eat worms. Yuck!
Spat Tech. But while Tech was looking at the gulls, he wasn't paying attention to where he was going, and suddenly he turned on his side into the middle of the furrow.
You potatoes, what's happened?
Squeaked Tech.
And though he tried to go forward and backward, he couldn't, because his two wheels were in the air. The big blue tractor came nearer. Then Roy jumped out of the cab and walked over to Tech. "What are you doing there, Tech?" But before he had a chance to answer, Roy had lifted him out. "You look frightened, Tech. Are you okay?" asked Roy.
Yes, thanks. I would love to be able to plough and plant seeds,
said Tech. "Why don't you go and help Molly in the garden?" said Roy.
That's a good idea,
said Tech, and off he went. But before going into the garden, he popped into the machine shed to tell Sam the Scarecrow that the big blue tractor had not finished ploughing the field.
Goodness gracious, that means I'll be in this shed for days,
said Sam in a disappointed voice.
No, of course you won't,
said Tech.
He'll have finished by tonight, you'll see, and I'll go back to the field again before lunch to see how he's getting on. I have to go now. I'm on my way to the garden to help Molly. Bye-bye,
said Tech, tooting his horn.
Toot-toot.
Lucky for some,
said Sam the Scarecrow sadly. But that was that. There was nothing for it but to dream. Dream that his feet were in the mud and his nose in the sky, and that all the crows had flown far, far away. In the garden, Tech and Molly were busy gardening. It was Tech's job to carry the plants, and Molly's job to plant them. "I'm going to plant new potatoes first," said Molly. One potato, 2 potatoes, 3 potatoes, 4 potatoes. And by the time she had reached the end of the row, there were no potatoes left in the box. "Now then, what about the lettuce?" Molly said. And Molly started to plant the lettuce plants at the top of the row. 1 lettuce, 2 lettuces, 3 lettuces, 4. And by the end of the row, all the lettuces were planted and the box was empty.
Toot, toot, well done,
tooted Tech happily. "My word, look at the time, Tech. I'd better go and prepare lunch," said Molly, pulling off her gardening gloves.
Goodness gracious, said Tech. I promised to Sam that I would go back to the field to see how the ploughing was coming along.
And off he shot out of the garden. Molly gathered the equipment together and off she went to the house. Tech drove past the shed and up the lane and through the gate to the field where the big blue tractor was still ploughing. As she started to prepare lunch, Molly heard a funny sound coming from outside. She looked in the back garden, but there was nothing there to make a noise, only the clean clothes drying in the sun. She looked across the farmyard. Nothing there either. But as she turned to go into the house, she heard some clucking and bleating coming from the garden, and off she went to see what was going on. What a shock! Someone was in the garden. She saw a pair of horns and some feathery tails. Gertie the goat and the hens, they were all pecking and scratching and trampling in the garden. Shoo, shoo, out you go, you naughty things, she shouted at them. Tech was driving across the farmyard when he heard all the shouting coming from the garden.
Oh my goodness!
He squeaked before driving as fast as his wheels could take him to the battlefield.
Out you go! Toot!
Shouted Tech, tooting his horn angrily.
Out you go! Shoo!
And at last the two succeeded in driving all the animals out again. But what a mess in the vegetable garden! And while the big blue tractor was ploughing, Tech and Molly were busy trying to sort out the garden. "We've finished at last," said Molly. "Thanks for your help, Tech."
You're welcome, Molly.
And Tech drove out of the garden. And Molly made sure that she closed the gate this time. Then Tech went back to the field once more to watch the big blue tractor ploughing. By the time he had arrived, the big blue tractor had ploughed over half the field.
Great! Sam will be delighted, said Tech happily.
But then, all at once, the big blue tractor stopped and wouldn't move an inch. Tech went closer to see what was the matter.
"Oh, I'm ill. I've got a tummy ache,"
moaned the big blue tractor. And indeed he did look ill, and there was a very strange noise coming from his tummy. But after putting his head under the bonnet, "I know what's wrong with him," said Roy, and he asked Tech to go to the tool shed to fetch a new diesel filter for the big blue tractor.
Of course I'll go,
said Tech, before tooting his horn and going towards the farmyard.
The big blue tractor must have a terrible tummy ache,
said Tech. And when he reached the farmyard, it was not long before he had found the diesel filter and took it back to the field. In a second, Roy had let out the wind from the big blue tractor's tummy and had fitted a new diesel filter instead of the old one.
"Oh, that's better,"
said the big blue tractor as Roy climbed into the cab and started the engine. The tractor felt a lot better, although he looked very tired.
Ploughing must be very hard work, even for a big tractor,
thought Tech.
But how on earth was he going to tell Sam that they hadn't finished ploughing the field? Toot toot! Sam!
Tech sounded his horn as he got to the shed. But what a shock!
Sam the Scarecrow wasn't there.
Where had he gone?
Tech was tired by now after going back and forth between the shed and the field all day,
and he didn't feel like going to look for Sam the Scarecrow. But he decided that he had better go and check the garden, just in case Gertie or the hens had crept back in and made a mess again.
Hey, Tec, look at me!
Shouted someone,
Tec, Tec!
and Tec followed the voice into the garden. And who do you think was standing in the middle of the potato patch? Yes, no less than Sam the Scarecrow himself.
What are you doing there, Sam the Scarecrow?
Shouted Tec.
No, I'm Sam the Scarehens now.
Laughed Sam.
The big blue tractor hasn't finished plowing the field yet,
Said Tec.
Oh, I don't care about the field now. I'm enjoying myself here.
Said Sam the Scarehens.
Tec had never been to a young farmer's rally before, and Molly and the little red tractor had promised to help. Molly had to announce the competitions on a loudspeaker.
Molly, I'm going for a little drive,
Said Tec. And off he went. What were the young farmers doing there, he wondered. Tec pushed his way in until he could see what was happening. And he saw 4 horses being examined by the farmers, who looked at them carefully and then wrote on pieces of paper which one was the best.
but they all look exactly the same to me,
Said Tec, puzzled.
I wonder what they're doing in this circle.
The farmer had a whistle and a black dog. A very strange black dog. These must be sheepdog trials, thought Tec. But the brown dog had a blindfold over its eyes. The dog ran through the gap. They weren't dogs, of course, but young farmers.
Galloping gaskets! These young farmers are real clowns!
Laughed Tec. Then Tec followed a noise like angry bees, which came from another part of the field. He wasn't so puzzled this time. He knew that this was a sheep shearing competition,
and the one who sheared the tidiest fleece would win. Tec drove closer so that he could see properly. His eyes followed the shearer's movements backwards and forwards, until all the sheep had been sheared. But which one had done the best job?
That one?
Said Tec.
No, that one? Or maybe that one?
Oh dear, it was very hard to choose. Thank goodness there were judges to do that. Tec would never have been able to decide who should win the first prize.
Molly!
Called Tec as he made his way to the caravan. Oh, Tec, I need someone to fetch the results from the judges.
No problem,
Said Tec, and off he went to find the judges. What luck! The judges of the blindfold sheepdog competition had just finished adjudicating.
Beep beep! Do you have the results, please?
Said Tec. Certainly. There you go, said the judge, and she placed the paper in the box.
Thank you very much. Beep!
Tec hooted his horn again before hurrying over to the judge of the horses.
Thank you. Beep!
And the sheep shearing judge.
Thank you very much. Beep beep!
Tec hooted his horn as he rushed back to the caravan with the all-important results. Oh, thank you very much, Tec, said Molly. I don't know what I would have done without you. I really don't. Tec was kept busy all day fetching the results from the different judges. And while he was doing that, he saw many different competitions too. Then Tec went to watch the Wellington throwing competition.
Galloping gaskets, this is fun! Beep beep!
Tec hooted his horn to encourage clubs. It was the hillside team who was winning at the time. He had thrown the Wellington furthest and highest. But it was now the Glendale team's turn. He threw the Wellington so that it flew high up in the sky before landing on the other side. "Hooray!" shouted Glendale's supporters. But the hillside team had one last competitor. Would he be able to throw the Wellington higher and further than the one before him? Tec's heart was thumping with excitement. Where is Tec with the results? Wondered Molly. He should have returned by now. Tec swallowed hard as the competitor took up the Wellington boot. Then he threw it high over his shoulder and a long way. Well done, yee-hee! Shouted his supporters. The young farmer was ready to throw the Wellington again. He gripped the Wellington and threw it over his shoulder, high and far in the sky again. Hooray! Shouted everyone.
and the judge placed the result in Tech's box.
Thank you very much. Beep beep,
said Tech, and off he went back to the caravan. Tech, where have you been? Asked Molly, all in a fuss.
Watching the willy wanging competition. It was very close,
said Tech excitedly. Oh, I see, but be sure you don't linger anywhere once you've been given the marks, said Molly.
I shan't. I'll be back in a flash,
said Tech, and off he went back to the field. By this time, nearly all the competitions were over. Only the tug-of-war was left to go. It was the last round of the tug-of-war competition, and this year the finalists were Hillside and Glendale. But who was going to win? Hillside? No. Glendale? No. Hillside? Heave, heave, heave! Shouted the supporters. And finally, the Glendale floored their opponents. And as the crowd shouted and cheered, the judge placed the result in Tech's box. And off he went back to the caravan. But as he was on his way out, a sudden gust of wind blew the paper out of the box.
Galloping gaskets, the result!
Shouted Tech, but it flew like a kite up in the air, fast and far out of Tech's reach. He chased it across the farmyard, past the old tractors, through the trees, and back to the farmyard. Where is Tech? Asked Molly. The competitions had all finished, and everyone was waiting for the final marks.
Galloping gaskets, I'd never catch it,
said Tech in despair. But at last the paper landed not on the ground nor on a roof, but in a puddle of water.
Galloping gaskets, what do I do now?
Wondered Tech. Molly was on tenterhooks waiting to announce the winning club. But where was Tech with the last all-important result? And as she spoke, who should appear with a paper stuck to his bonnet but Tech? What's happened to it, Tech? Asked Molly.
It blew into the puddle,
whispered Tech.
but I managed to dry it on my bonnet. The numbers are still there.
Thank goodness, said Molly. Well done, Tech. Oh. And Molly ran over to the stage where they were waiting for the final results. Oh, here they are at last, puffed Molly.
Thank you, Molly. The winners of this year's Young Farmers Rally are Glendale with 150 points. Hooray!
Everyone clapped their hands. Good, eh?
Oh, yes,
said Tech.
Congratulations to Glendale! Hooray!
And Tech flashed his lights. family farm was very, very quiet. All the animals and all the machines were still fast asleep. Roy was up and about. On his way to fetch some milk, he went to check up on Keris the cow. She was expecting a little calf any time. Keris was in the cowshed. "Hello, my darling," said Roy. "How are you feeling?"
I'm quite well, thank you.
she replied. But was the little calf about to be born today? Well, thought Roy, we'll just have to wait and see. By this time, Tec was wide awake and raring to go to work. "Good morning, everyone," he said brightly. All the other machines slept soundly. Toot toot! Nothing doing. They weren't about to wake up in a hurry.
Never mind, I'm off anyway,
said the little red tractor as he drove through the door and up the hill. Then, just as he was about to toot his horn, Roy came to fetch him. "Come on, Tec," said Roy. "I'm off to next door to fetch some milk." "Well," parked Tec happily. He loved visiting next door. Very soon they reached next door.
Here we are,
exclaimed Tec. Then he thought,
I wonder if little Bob started to milk his cows yet.
And then little Bob turned up. "Hello, Bob." Roy waved his hand.
Hello, Bob,
said Tec. Bob greeted them. "Good morning, everyone." "Good morning, Bob," said Roy. "Would you like to come to milk the cows?" asked Bob.
Yes, please,
said Tec. He had never seen anyone milk a cow. When Tec went into the parlour, he got the shock of his life. It was a dark, cold place, and the little tractor shivered. He felt very small all of a sudden. The cows towered above him.
"Hello, Tec,"
called one of the cows.
Hello, ladies,
said Tec. Roy and Tec watched little Bob milking the cows. First, he made sure that their udders were clean. Then he put the clusters on. The machine sucked the milk from the cow into a big glass jar.
And the cow tucked into a jolly good meal while this was going on. Tech, look at the milk, said Roy. Lots of creamy milk was whooshing into the big glass jar. Tech watched the milk flowing from the jar along a pipe into another big glass jar in the dairy. And then on into a huge milk tank. The tank was so big it could store milk for 2 whole days until the milk lorry came. Back in the milking parlour, another cow had just been milked, and Bob was letting her out of the cubicle. But where was she going next? Tech thought he'd go out and have a look while Bob and Roy carried on with the rest of the milking.
I see.
Parped the little tractor.
So this is where the cows go when they've been milked. I wonder how many cows there are,
Thought Tech.
I can see nothing but legs. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He tried to count the cows, but they kept on moving around.
I know,
Said Tech.
I'll go to count the calves. They're more my size.
Luckily, the shed door was open, so Tech just drove in. Inside were 4 little calves. He loved the calves. They were very cute. Then little Bob and Roy came into the shed carrying a bucket full of feed. They tipped the feed into an enormous bucket, and the little calves attacked it with gusto. They loved their feed.
These calves are going to grow and grow,
Said Tech.
They'll soon be a lot bigger than I am.
Come on, said little Bob. Now it's time to drive the cows back into the field. And they all followed little Bob into the yard. The little red tractor watched as the cows ambled their way back into the field. It was time to wash the parlour down. The parlour must be spotlessly clean, and the first job was cleaning the glass jars. Then Bob and Roy washed the floors. Suddenly, they heard a noise out in the yard, and the 3 of them went to investigate.
What on earth is that?
Exclaimed Tech. It was the milk lorry. The driver attached the pipe to little Bob's big milk tank. When he pressed the button, the lorry sucked all the milk into its big round tank. When he'd finished, the driver put the pipe back on the lorry and drove away. He was taking little Bob's cow's milk to the factory.
Oh,
Thought Tech. He thought they'd forgotten to fill the jug. Roy looked a little concerned too when he saw the milk lorry drive out of the yard. But little Bob smiled as he showed them the jug. He had remembered to keep some fresh milk back for them. "Thank goodness for that," said Roy. For a moment he thought they'd have no milk to take home. "Thanks, Bob," said Roy. "We'll have milk for breakfast after all." Tech parped his horn happily.
"Thanks, Bob,"
he said. "Toot toot." Roy and the little red tractor took the jug of milk home. "Thanks, Bob," called Roy. "You're welcome," said Bob.
"Do you think Keris will have had her calf by now?"
asked Tech. "Well, let's see if she has," said Roy. And she had. Keris's little calf had been born in the short time that they had been next door. "Good girl, Keris," exclaimed Roy. Of course, there was plenty of milk for the little calf to drink. His mummy would feed him his breakfast. Breakfast? Roy suddenly remembered the jug of milk, which he took into the house for Molly and Katie. Of course, it was just as well that Tech didn't drink milk. They'd need more than that little jug full. It was a beautiful June day at Family Farm. The sun-dried hay on the field filled the air with a scent as sweet as honey. But what was the big red tractor and the haymaker doing today? Tech wondered.
"Sweet honeysuckle! They're turning the hay!"
Tech was excited, and he went to tell Katie.
"Beep, beep! Out of the way, everybody! Out of the way!"
shouted Tech as he drove across the farmyard. When he arrived at the garden, Katie was waiting for him.
"We have to toss the hay, Katie,"
said Tech. "Oh, great!" Katie jumped and began to throw the hay in the air. But why were they making hay in the garden? Molly had mowed the lawn some days ago, and instead of throwing the cuttings on the compost, Katie and Tech had asked her to leave them on the lawn so that they could make hay. They wanted to make hay in the garden just as Roy made hay in the fields. No, no, said Molly. You don't turn hay like that. You must use a rake and do it like this. And Molly showed them how farmers used to toss the hay in the old days. But why do you have to toss the hay? Asked Katy. So that all of it dries in the sun, said Molly. Katy went to fetch a small rake and started to help her mother. But after she'd finished tossing the hay, Katy asked, "What are we supposed to do now?"
I know,
said Tech.
you stay here, Katy, and I'll go to the field to see what Roy is doing.
And off he went.
Beep, beep, look out!
Yelled Tech, hooting his horn wildly.
Buzzing blue bottles, not Tech again?
Cackled the hens. Tech finally made it to the hayfield. But now the haymaker wasn't tossing the hay, but laying it out in neat rows.
Galloping gaskets! That haymaker is very clever,
said Tech. But how could he and Katy make rows of hay like that? Tech didn't know. But he started his engine and off he went through the fields again.
Goodness, what the net's the matter with Tech today? He's like a yo-yo driving back and forth between the garden and the hayfield since the break of day.
But Tech wasn't listening. He was in far too much of a hurry to go back and tell Katy what she had to do next.
Katy! Katy! Beep! Beep!
Tech hooted his horn. "What are we supposed to do now?" asked Katy eagerly.
Gather it up in rows! Gather it up into rows!
Gasped Tech breathlessly. "Like this?" asked Katy.
Yes, yes, exactly so, that's it.
Tech was thrilled. And Katy was an excellent maker of rows. But gathering all the hay in the garden into rows was an awful lot of work. "Hold on, I'll help you now," said Molly. And they both raked the hay into neat rows. But Tech couldn't do much to help, because he didn't have the correct implement on his arms.
Galloping gaskets, this is no good. I've got nothing to do now,
said Tech disappointedly. "Just wait a minute," said Molly. "I know what you can do." And off she went to fetch something. "Here you are, Tech," she said when she returned.
A rake! A rake just for me!
Tech was thrilled. "Now then, all we have to do is place it on your hook at the back, and there we are."
"Oh, great! Now I can help too!"
said Tech happily, and before anyone could tell him what to do, Tech was away, gathering the loose hay. "Good for you, Tech," said Molly. Roy and the big red tractor were still making hay in the field. The baler was very efficient. It was much quicker than using a rake. had soon finished his work, and after Molly had unhooked the rake, off he went back to the hayfield to see what the next step would be.
I won't be long,
said Tech as he drove out of the garden. Across the farmyard, and into the hayfield. And what a surprise he got! There was nobody there. There was no sign at all of Roy, or the tractor, or the haymaker. Only a field of newly mown hay, arranged in neat rows.
Galloping gaskets! They must have finished,
said Tech. But what were they going to do next, he wondered.
I know, said Tech. I'll go and find Bill, the little baler. He'll know what to do next.
And there was the big red tractor and Bill in the field next door, working hard, making bales. Bill raked the hay into his mouth with his sharp teeth, worked hard to shape it, and then pushed out the bale in a perfect rectangle. Tech looked in wonder at the rows of neat bales.
Bales! Katie and I will never be able to turn the hay into bales,
sighed Tech sadly.
We haven't got a baler.
And he dragged himself back despondently. Across the farmyard, and back to the garden. What should we do now? Asked Katie.
Bale the hay,
said Tech.
But that's impossible because we don't have a baler.
Don't worry, Tech. Nothing is impossible, said Molly. Katie, would you please take the cups back into the house and bring me out some baling twine? Then Molly rolled the hay into a neat round ball. Katie ran back to the garden with the twine. She wound the twine around the round bale, and Molly tied it tightly. There! What do you think of that bale, then? Asked Molly proudly.
That's a beautiful bale, Molly.
Tech wriggled in delight. Yes, it is, agreed Katie. But how many bales had Bill the baler made by now? The field was dotted all over with hay bales, and Bill the baler was still churning them out. But after baling and baling and baling in the garden and in the field, every bit of hay had been packed into tidy bales. And there was no more to do now but to carry the bales into the hayshed, where they would be safe and undamaged by rain and bad weather. In the meantime, Tech had gone to fetch Tommy the trailer, and Katie and Molly loaded the bales onto Tommy. In the hay shed, Roy was unloading the bales from the trailer and building a huge haystack.
But where do we take the bales now?
Asked Tommy the trailer.
To the hay shed, of course,
Said Tech. Galloping gaskets. Tommy the trailer didn't half ask some daft questions sometimes, honestly. And by supper time, there were 2 tidy haystacks at Family Farm. Roy's big haystack and Tech and Katie's little one. Plenty of food for the animals to eat in the winter.
Family Farm was busy every day of the year, but today it seemed busier than ever. Roy had just cut the grass, but he was not really sure what to do with it. He had a choice either to leave it in the sun to dry or to wrap it up into big bales with black plastic. In the meantime, Molly was in the shed looking for paint to paint the garden gate. Which colour was best?
Oh, I do hope that Roy will make big bales today,
Said Tech. And when Tech saw Roy jump from the tractor,
What are you going to do today, Roy?
said Tech. Big bales, said Roy.
Beep, beep, hooray!
Said Tech happily, and he beeped his horn before he chugged away.
Big bales! We're going to make big bales!
Said Tech.
Beep, beep.
Tech beeped his horn right behind Molly and frightened her so much that she dropped the paint all over Tech. Oops, said Tech. Oh, dear me. Tech, are you okay? Said Molly.
Molly began to wipe the paint up, but made more of a mess with the cloth. Molly went to the house to get something to get rid of the paint.
What has happened here, then? I did not recognize you. Tech the little white tractor.
Said Cluck. Tech looked disapprovingly at Cluck.
It was only a joke.
What does she mean, little white tractor?
said Tech. Then Molly came back with a bucket in her hand. Here we are. This should get rid of it, said Molly.
Ouch! It burns!
Cried Tech. But a little later, Tech was red again. When Tech arrived at the fields, Bill the baler started to make big bales of hay, and it was as if he was laying big eggs.
The big blue tractor would need to carry them to the house,
thought Tech. Molly was still painting, and by now her arms and back were hurting.
Beep, beep, said the blue tractor.
Molly jumped with fright again, but this time the pot of paint was safely on the floor. Tech had decided to go to the field to see the big bales. He saw Molly and was about to beep his horn when Molly smiled at him, showed him the paintbrush, and shook her finger. One accident with paint was quite enough for one day. Tech drove to see the bales and to look for holes in the plastic. Luckily, he could not find any holes, and he looked up into the sky to see if there were any crows. Crows were very naughty and quite often put holes in the plastic with their beaks. When Tech arrived, Bill the baler and Lenny the rapper were wrapping the hay into black plastic. Tech loved to watch Lenny wrapping the big bales. They looked light, like big black balloons, but Tech knew that they were very heavy and very sturdy. Tech parked himself for a little rest.
Oh, how lovely,
said Tech. And as Lenny continued to rap and rap, Tech felt tired. Very, very tired. He fell asleep And when he woke up, the field was empty. Not one single machine in sight. It was very quiet, and all the hay was in big bales. He drove quickly away. When Tech passed the yard, Molly was nowhere in sight. She had also finished her work. He drove on. Roy did not look very happy as he jumped from his tractor. He had just seen 2 crows flying away, and they had pecked holes in the bales. Roy would have to fix the holes straight away, or the hay would be spoilt.
The naughty crows,
said Tech, and he watched as Roy sealed every single hole with black tape. Roy wondered how he could keep the crows away. He had to frighten them somehow. Then, suddenly, Tech had a brilliant idea.
Come on, Roy, quickly,
said Tech. Where are you going, Tech? said Roy.
With you, please,
shouted Tech. Roy had now understood Tech's plans. Molly came out of the house with brushes and paint. She was confused. And off they went across the yard. Roy moved the big blue tractor, and Molly had given Tech a paintbrush. Roy put lots of paint on his brush and painted a face on the black plastic. Roy smiled.
Give him a nose and a mouth, Roy,
said Tech.
Well done, Roy!
And after he had painted a face on the black plastic, he stepped back to admire his work. Come on, said Roy. They say that painting white faces will keep the crows away. And then Molly and Tech started painting. Tech was having a great time because he was allowed to paint for the first time in his life, and he was obviously enjoying himself. The 3 of them painted and painted and painted. And by the time they had finished, there were lots of faces. Happy faces, sad faces, faces with glasses, and funny faces. By the end, the bales were covered with faces. Let's hope they frightened the crows away.
Autumn at Family Farm was very wet. The rain had turned the earth into slushy mud and watery muck, which was all over the place. The lane was muddy. The farmyard was muddy. The tracks between the fields were filled with mud. And Tech's wheels were covered in muck. But he wasn't bothered by a little bit of mud. Not at all. No, indeed. Tech was enjoying himself. Beep! Beep! Tech trundled straight into the muck and through a puddle. It was easy to find his friends as well. Today he didn't have to toot his horn or call out to his friends to find out where they were. All he had to do was follow their muddy footprints. And as he left the farmyard, Tech saw some footprints in the mud.
Now then, I wonder whose footprints these are,
thought Tech as he followed the trail through the mud.
More footprints here too,
said Tech.
Quack, quack, flying foxes! How did you sneak up so quietly?
Asked Daniel the Drake, his heart in his mouth. He had been certain that it was a fox.
Hello, everyone,
smiled Tech.
How on earth did you know where to find us?
Quacked Daniel.
Easy peasy,
said Tech.
I followed your footprints.
I hope that the fox doesn't have the same idea,
thought Daniel the Drake.
Or we'll be finished. Quack, quack.
Tech, called Roy.
Oh, goodness me!
Tech was startled, and the ducks all laughed at him.
Quack, 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 quack. That'll teach you to scare everyone else,
laughed Daniel the Drake. And it was Tech's turn now to question Roy.
But how did you know where to find me?
Easy, said Roy. All I had to do was follow your tire tracks in the mud. Roy was busy. He didn't have time to hang about. Come on, Tech, he said. I need your help. And away they went. Until they came to the entrance to the field.
Where's all the mud gone?
Asked Tech in surprise. Roy explained that he had cleared away a lot of it. But what were those stones and planks of wood lying on the ground?
We're going to make some concrete, said Roy.
Make concrete, oh, Brill! What do you want me to do?
Asked Tech. Go to fetch some sand, said Roy.
Sand, okay, fine,
said Tech, and Tech immediately went to get Tommy the trailer.
Tommy, you'll never believe what we're going to do today,
said Tech.
Go to the seaside?
Wondered Tommy.
Go to the seaside in the autumn? No, indeed,
said Tech.
No! Of course not, no!
What then?
said Tommy.
We're going to help Roy to make concrete.
Concrete? Yes, concrete! Concrete!
And with that, he pulled Tommy out of the machine shed and across the farmyard over to the mound of gravel. Are you ready, Tommy? asked Roy.
Oh, I don't know,
said Tommy nervously, but before he could think about it some more, Roy was loading the gravel into his body.
Oh, I feel very full and heavy,
complained Tommy, and suddenly he burped.
Excuse me.
Come on, said Roy.
Sizzling snowballs, you weigh a ton, Tommy,
grunted Tech. Then Roy shoveled some sand into the trailer. Before the three of them set off back towards the entrance to the field, collecting a bag of cement from the shed on their way. Thanks very much, Tommy, said Roy, as he lifted the bag of cement from his trailer. I think we've got everything we need now, said Roy.
What's happening?
Said Tommy. And so that he could see exactly what was happening, Tech unhooked his friend and parked him by his side.
Water! You need water, Roy,
said Tech. But Roy had fetched the water already, and Max, the concrete mixer, was ready to go.
What's happening? What's that noise?
asked Tommy the trailer.
Max, the mixer, has started to churn the mix. To make concrete, you must put in 3 shovels full of gravel,
said Tech. Roy loaded 1, 2, 3 shovels full of gravel into Max's churning belly. It made a loud rattling noise. Then Roy threw in 2 shovelfuls of sand. And lastly, he shoveled some cement into Max's tummy.
Water! Water!
Shouted Max the mixer.
Why is he shouting?
Asked Tommy.
He needs water, said Tech, as he explained that he had to have water to bind the cement and gravel together. And after adding some water, though not too much, Roy placed the bucket back on the floor. Everyone watched as Max churned and turned the mixture.
Is it ready now?
Asked Tommy the trailer. No, said Tech. It's got to be well mixed.
But it doesn't look like concrete at all,
said Tommy.
It's wet.
Of course concrete is wet until it dries and hardens, said Tech. Oh dear, Tommy the trailer knew absolutely nothing about making concrete. Roy emptied the concrete over the area he had prepared and spread the concrete across the stones with his shovel, smoothing it out until the surface was even. There we are, all done. The gap will be much cleaner now, said Roy. But he had one more favour to ask of Tech and Tommy. He wanted them to guard the wet concrete in case anyone would walk through it and leave their footprints on it before it dried. Oh, don't worry, Roy. We'll make sure that no one walks over the wet concrete. Won't we, Tommy?
Sure we will,
said Tommy. And Tech and Tommy waited patiently there to watch over the concrete. Then Nell came by. Beep, beep, no, don't come any nearer, Nell. Tech hooted his horn in warning. The concrete is wet, shouted Tech. Nell was so frightened she ran for her life.
Hello, Tech and Tommy.
Clucked Winnie.
What are you doing there?
Asked Cluck.
guarding the wet concrete,
said Tommy.
Can I see?
Asked Winnie. No, you can't. Stay where you are, shouted Tech, or your footprints will be in the concrete forever.
Goodness me, did you hear that, Cluck?
Said Nancy in surprise.
What did he say? Your footprints would be in the concrete forever. Count me out.
Cackled Cluck, flying away.
Oh dear,
Tommy yawned. Muck and mudcakes. I'm exhausted, sighed Tech. Watching wet concrete was tiring work, and he felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier until they were almost closed. But galloping gaskets, it was very hard work, keeping his eyes wide open when he was so tired. And as his eyelids were about to close again, he heard the sheep bleating. Sheep! He shouted, but he couldn't see them anywhere. Sand and gravel, they must be in the field, and they'll be sure to run through the gap and into the wet concrete any minute now. Oh! He started up and drove furiously through the wet concrete, leaving tire tracks all over it. But Roy just laughed. And so did Tech, as he realized that his tire tracks would be in the dry concrete forever and ever. Oh, Tech.
It was a cold winter's morning, and everywhere was frozen solid. After he had opened his eyes, Tech fired up his engine, and away he went. He poked his nose out of the door and felt the icy wind biting his bonnet.
Galloping gaskets, it is cold,
He grumbled as he trundled across the farmyard.
Oh, Tech, darling, do go back to the machine shed before you freeze up, mooed Carolyn the cow. And look out for the ice. It's incredibly slippery.
But her warning came too late. Tech had skidded on a patch of ice and was skiing and zigzagging across the farmyard, just missing the wheelbarrow and Mike the motorbike by a hair's breadth.
Watch where you're going,
Shouted Mike the motorbike angrily. Shouted Tech, but by then he had crashed into a pile of sacks. Are you all right, Tech? Asked Molly.
I skidded on the ice,
Said Tech. Now then, Tech, it's dangerous today. You must be careful. It's icy everywhere. And Molly almost slipped and fell as she walked back to the house. Tech shivered as he drove as slowly as a tortoise across the farmyard, his eyes fixed on the floor, looking out for another patch of ice that might make him skid again. And as he moved, Tech began to warm up all over.
Galloping gaskets, that's much better,
He said, and he went over to the pond, wondering if that had frozen over. When he arrived, there was no sign of Daniel the drake and the other ducks, and the pond hadn't frozen over, but it was getting very close. And so was the fence. And even though Tech had put the brakes on, he was still sliding forward. He simply couldn't stop himself. His wheels spun quickly, and he landed on his nose in the fence.
What's next?
Sighed Tech, his heart in his mouth. And he turned for home.
What on earth's wrong with me?
He asked nervously, and decided to go and ask Molly to have a look at him, because wherever he went, he just could not stop moving. His nose was hurting too, so Tech made for the farmyard, driving very slowly and carefully in case he should bump into someone or something. He didn't see the hens until it was too late. He pressed his brakes, but nothing happened. He pressed them again, but he couldn't stop. He was still moving, and the hens scattered in all directions. Shoo, 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 get out of my way, move! Yelled Tech.
I can't stop. Oh dear, beep, beep.
And when Molly heard all the noise, she went to see what was the matter. There was Tech with his nose flat against a sack. Tech, what do you think you're doing? Asked Molly, who had a very worried expression on her face. Are you all right?
No, indeed I'm not, Molly. There must be something dreadful wrong with me. I can't slow down or stop at all,
said Tech in a depressed voice. And then Molly said, there must be something the matter with your brakes. Let's go to the garage for tractors. Fair play to Molly, she had remembered to place a cushion at the front of the truck in case Tech hit his nose. as he drove to the garage for mending tractors. "Be careful reversing out of the trailer," said Molly. Shouted Tech. After Molly had helped him out of the trailer, Tech took a look around him.
I'll be with you in 2 minutes.
The mechanic waved to them. He was busy fixing a big tractor. What was wrong with him? Perhaps his brakes weren't working either.
What's the matter with you?
A voice sounded from behind him.
Who? Me?
Asked Tech nervously.
Yes, you look too healthy to be here, said a rusty old tractor.
I can't put my brakes on,
said Tech.
Oh, well, you only need new brake pads, so,
said the rusty old tractor.
How do you know?
Asked Tech. And the old tractor explained that he knew all about mending tractors because he had been standing there watching the tractors being mended for years and years.
But what's wrong with you then?
Tech asked daringly.
Far too many things for me to start telling you about them,
said the rusty old tractor.
You see, a lazy farmer called Clive Clueless used to own me, and he never looked after me or took care of my engine, and here I am now all rusted up and no use to anyone.
Oh, what a pity,
said Tech, and shook his head sadly.
But you are lucky you have a farmer who cares for you and looks after you,
said the rusty old tractor before it started to cough and cough and cough. The mechanic had nearly finished working on the big tractor. He closed the bonnet and climbed into the cab. Molly went over to Tech and the rusty old tractor. Well, Tech, you've made a new friend, said Molly. But the rusty old tractor was still coughing horribly. But its coughing was drowned by the noisy roar of the big tractor as it was driven out of the garage. Yes, it had been fixed and was perfectly healthy once more.
Next,
called the mechanic. Right, let's get you mended, said Molly, and Tech reversed.
Stop,
shouted the mechanic, lifting his hand. Molly held on to Tech firmly.
I see. Can't brake, can't you?
Asked the mechanic, whose hands were covered in black oil.
That's it,
said Tech. What an interesting place the garage was. There were tools of every kind there. Some small, some big, some shiny, some black, some old, and some new.
Don't worry, little tractor, said the mechanic. I'll sort your brakes out in 2 ticks.
Will it hurt?
Asked Tech.
Of course not, said Molly.
And after removing one of Tech's back wheels, the mechanic cleaned the brakes, tightened the nuts, and put some new pads in. Then he replaced Tech's wheel very carefully.
There you go. You should be able to use your brakes to stop now, smiled the mechanic.
said Tech. Yes, indeed, agreed Molly.
You're welcome.
Said the mechanic. And away went Tech happily. Yes, indeed, it was a lovely feeling to be completely healthy again.
Come on, Molly, beep beep.
Tech hooted his horn in the trailer, happy to be going home. And no, there was no need for the caution now, thank goodness.
Beep beep. Goodbye.
Tech hooted his horn at the rusty old tractor.
Goodbye and good luck to you, Tech.
Shouted the rusty old tractor. And when Tech arrived back at Family Farm, he went to look for everyone he had frightened, to apologize to them.
Cluck, Ginny, Winnie, Nancy, where are you?
Tech called out to them, but everyone was hiding. Tech! Called Molly.
Coming now, beep beep.
Hooted Tech happily. But Molly was scared as he drew nearer. She wasn't sure whether Tech would be able to stop. Were his brakes working? Oh no, he was driving much too fast. Tech! Shouted Molly. But Tech braked immediately and stopped, an exact inch away from her. Oh, thank goodness for that, said Molly happily. Tech had been playing a trick on her.